Jia is a 32-year-old single, out-of-work freelancer, which most people say is unemployed. She gets roasted by her parents for living in their house rent-free and unmarried, while her little sister is having her third child. So frustrated by her family's pressure, she decides to marry her childhood friend, Mincheol, who was a nerd back in school and who Jia stopped hanging out with. But now he is a manager in a well-known company, has money, a PS5, and a hot-looking physique. Mincheol is also single and tired of his parents pressuring him to get married. Jia comes up with an idea that they both get married to get rid of their parents' pressure. And in the next week, Mincheol meets Jia's dad, marries Jia, takes her on a honeymoon, comes back to their home, and gets Jia moved into his apartment. Jia is still a week behind in processing things, but now she cannot do anything. After the marriage, Mincheol goes to his office where everyone congratulates him. But his manager starts crying because she was hoping to get married to Mincheol. Since childhood, she had been looking for an average guy, and as a result, she was still single and had hit 32 years old unmarried. But last year, she found Mincheol as her ideal average guy type and finally decided to marry him. But hearing the news of Mincheol getting married shattered her dream. It's Lunar New Year, a time for families to celebrate. But for Jia, a 32-year-old struggling freelancer, which is just a fancy way of saying unemployed, the holiday feels more like a burden. As she is preparing dinner for the incoming guests while her parents watch a video of their grandson, Jia gets irritated when her dad starts sneaking bites of the food she's cooking. She snaps and demands them to help her if they're going to eat, but her mom reminds her that she lives rent-free in their house and should at least make food. Soon, Jia's younger sister, Jimin, arrives with her family. Their mom immediately hugs Jimin's daughter, while Jimin herself looks exhausted. Jimin's husband trails behind her while carrying their second son. Jia watches this from the corner, feeling invisible. Suddenly, she steps out and greets Jimin with a fake smile. Jimin wastes no time and roasts Jia about her single status, saying the apron looks great on her and that all she needs this year is a walk down the aisle. This hurts Jia, but she keeps her smile on and hands Jimin the apron. Just when her smile is about to twist into something darker, her mom smacks her on the head and scolds her for being rude. Jia gets angry and starts yelling that she's doing all the work and it's time for someone else to take over. Just then, Jimin's husband tells everyone that Jimin might be pregnant with their third child. The family gets excited with the news, but Jia slips outside to smoke. She gets furious at Jimin, who despite being younger, is setting her up on blind dates. Meanwhile, a stranger approaches her, eating chicken breast in the smoking area. He comments on her foul language, but Jia doesn't recognize him and asks who he is. The guy introduces himself as Mincheol, her next-door neighbor. It takes Jia a moment to recognize him. He was the awkward, quiet kid from her childhood who's now fit and confident. But Jia asks him what kind of weirdo eats chicken breast in a smoking area. Mincheol tells her there's no rule against eating chicken breast in a smoking area and explains that he's avoiding the high-calorie holiday food, which is why he came outside. Jia realizes that Mincheol, like her, is 32 and single, but Mincheol is a successful software engineer with a stable career, while she is single, unemployed, and constantly criticized at home, and her current wish is that the world ends tomorrow. When Mincheol asks about her life, Jia dodges the question with sarcastic replies and turns the conversation to him. He reveals that his parents are pressuring him to settle down and even sign him up for a pricey matchmaking service. Jia laughs at him and his parents and tells him at least her parents didn't go that far to throw her away, but soon realizes they would do it instantly if they had the money. Suddenly, Jia suggests to Mincheol that they should both get married since both are being pressured by their families. Mincheol looks at her in surprise, so Jia soon realizes she just said something nonsense. But she still keeps going with it and tells him it's a win-win situation for both of them. See Mincheol's reaction, she gets embarrassed about her suggestion. But just in the next moment, Mincheol meets Jia's dad, who instantly agrees. Mincheol and Jia get married and they land in Hawaii for their honeymoon. On their wedding night, Jia snaps back to reality. She thinks that she f***ed up as she didn't think things would be done so quickly. But now she cannot do anything about it. Mincheol gets out of the shower and starts searching his bag. When Jia asks him what he is looking for, he tells her he is sure he put the things that will make their first night relaxing in his bag. Jia gets shocked after hearing this. Just when Mincheol finds it, Jia shouts that she is not ready yet. But it turns out to be earbuds, as Mincheol snores sometimes in his sleep. So he brought earbuds for Jia, which will make both of them relax while sleeping at night. Mincheol instantly goes to sleep. Jia's liking meter for Mincheol instantly drops, but she just puts the earbuds in, realizing she was panicking for nothing, and goes to sleep. The next day, Jia wants to make sure their honeymoon goes smoothly, because it can turn out the hyped Jia and a tired Mincheol. She decides to remain careful. While she's trying to decide what to wear, Mincheol comes out fully ready, which shocks Jia, and she asks him what the f he is doing. Mincheol tells her he is fully ready, but Jia yells at him and asks him what kind of weirdo wears sandals and socks. Mincheol tells her it's comfortable and that it's not like anybody is going to see them. But Jia tells him that now she has seen them once, this will remain in her head. So she takes Mincheol to a nearby mall to buy new clothes. After changing, Minchul comes out looking like a Korean Superman, which Jia thinks looks more like a frog. Now Jia selects clothes for him and tells him these clothes look good on him. Seeing Jia compliment these clothes, Minchul asks the vendor to give him 7 of the same outfit, which shocks Jia even more. Minchul tells her it's better to buy 7 of them if the outfit looks good. So she asks him to stay there and starts choosing some good outfits for him. Meanwhile, Minchul sees some swimsuits and tells Jia he wants to buy a swimsuit for her for their banana boat ride. This shocks Jia and she starts blushing. So after shopping, they head to their next destination and Jia remains curious about what kind of swimsuit Minchul bought for her. After arriving at the beach, Jia goes to the changing room and remembers that in the mall, there were a lot of revealing swimsuits. She decides to take a look in the bag and gets shocked by Minchul's choice. It turns out to be a bodysuit. Minchul tells her it looks perfect while everyone laughs at Jia. Jia tells Minchul that it's their honeymoon and that everyone else is wearing swimsuits, but Minchul tells her it's comfortable and looks good on her. Jia doesn't get it and keeps objecting, but later, she enjoys the banana boat ride. Also, the bodysuit turns out to be pretty comfortable. They spend the day eating, swimming, and visiting different places while taking selfies. At the end of the day, Jia remains too excited about what to do next. Just then, Minchul notices that her leg is injured and offers her a ride on his back to the hotel. Jia gets embarrassed at first but gets on his back. When she asks him if she is heavy, Minchul tells her that her weight is perfectly the same as what he lifts at the gym, so it's a good exercise for him, for which Jia chokes him. But soon Jia calms down with Minchul's gesture. Suddenly, she sees the sunset and both decide to take a selfie. Later at the hotel, Jia looks at the pictures they took today and remembers Jimin's advice that couples fight on their first honeymoon, so she should win it. But for them, there wasn't any fight. She remembers the time she rode on Minchul's back and now realizes how embarrassing it was. But when she sees Minchul sleeping worry-free next to her with a drooling face, she decides not to take it seriously and goes to sleep. The next day, they head back to their city. At home, Jia gets surprised by the food her mom made for her, and when she asks her mom about the boxes in the living room and asks if they are moving, her mom tells her, "Not we, you are moving," and reminds her that she and Minchul told them she would move to Minchul's apartment after their honeymoon. So just like that, Jia's parents happily kick her out, and she moves to Minchul's apartment. And at Minchul's apartment, the first thing they both do is sit at the table with a paper and pen. So basically, Jia just said a few words and now she's screwed. Her parents happily kick her out with her belongings. And the person with whom she is supposed to live wants to write a contract before she can live in his apartment. So now they both are about to write a contract. The paper is a checklist of things one wants in the contract, as this is Minchul's idea. Jia instantly tosses the paper on the table, which shocks Minchul, who is quietly writing his rules on the checklist. Jia realizes that now she cannot go back and decides to write her rules. After writing, both decide to flip the paper at the count of 3. At 3, both show their rules. Minchul's 3 rules are no smoking, don't bother mouse, and say whatever bothers you right away. Meanwhile, Jia's rules are simple. No entering the room without knocking, which she later breaks every time, not forcing anything as she's not ready for it yet. And if something is wrong, work it out with communication. Jia gets angry at Minchul's rule of no smoking because even her own dad could not make her quit smoking. But Minchul tells her she has to do something about it herself because he really hates the smell of smoking. Jia asks what Mouse is, and it turns out to be Minchul's cat. Minchul named him Mouse because cats love mice. He asks Jia if she doesn't like cats, but seeing both the cat and Minchul making a face, Jia gives the green signal for the cat. But Jia then asks Minchul what he would do if she had said she was allergic to cats. Would he throw her out? Minchul tells her he was going to arrange another rental room for her if that happened, and that money is not a problem because even though this is a contract relationship, they are still married, and she married him because she trusted him. Hearing this, Jia realizes Minchul is actually serious about this relationship. Back to the contract, both write all their rules on it. Just then, Minchul reminds her that either party can terminate the contract at any time, as this was the first thing they both agreed upon. So both sign the contract, put their thumb impressions on it, and shake hands as they look forward to living with each other. That night, Jia orders furniture for herself, but today she is going to sleep on a futon. She gets anxious as from today, this is going to be her new home, and on top of that, Minchul is next door to her. By the way, Minchul is gaming in his room. Jia gets more uncomfortable in a new place and realizes she is not going to fall asleep like usual in a new place. But just after a few minutes, she falls asleep. The next day, Jia wakes up while Minchul is cooking. When Jia goes to the kitchen and sees Minchul cooking, she gets shocked and decides to sit and watch Minchul making breakfast. Minchul takes a few veggies and chicken, puts them in a jug, and blends them, making a 1-star rating Minchul's special chicken breast smoothie. When Jia asks him what this is, Minchul tells her it's breakfast. Jia, without thinking, drinks all of it but instantly regrets it because of the taste. Jia asks him if this is the only thing for breakfast, but Minchul tells her no, which makes Jia happy. Then Minchul gives her a protein bar. Jia tosses it and asks him to give her real food, but for Mincheol, a protein bar is real food. Jia blames him, saying he is going to eat a good lunch at the office while forcing her to eat this, but Mincheol shows her his lunchbox, which contains the same stuff, just not blended. Jia instantly runs to the fridge, but the fridge is also full of the same stuff, just in different packaging. Jia falls on the ground and regrets not appreciating her mom's cooking. Just then, Mincheol tells her she can just go outside and have breakfast, which shocks Jia, as she thought they had to eat breakfast together because in her family, they always eat together. Mincheol changes his shoes as he is leaving for work. Jia first teases him, but also tells him that he doesn't have to worry as she will soon find a job. Just when Mincheol leaves, she starts laughing and announces that she will remain jobless until her bank account has no money. On the other hand, Mincheol knocks on the window of his friend's car, who came to pick him up. This guy's name is Sang, and he is the subordinate of Mincheol at work. While heading to the office, he sees Mincheol smiling and asks him if anything good has happened. Mincheol tells him it's good if you have someone waiting for you at home. When Sang asks him if he is talking about a waifu in a game, Mincheol tells him it's his wife. This shocks Sang and he asks if he is serious. So Mincheol tells him he can show him pictures of the honeymoon. Suddenly, someone even more shocked than Sang shouts from the back seat and asks who married whom. At the office, everyone congratulates Mincheol on his wedding, while the girl from the back seat and Sang watch all of this from the side, remaining surprised by Mincheol's sudden revelation about the wedding. Sang tries to escape, but the girl grabs his shoulder and asks him to listen to her. In the office storage room, the girl chokes Sang's neck and asks him why Mincheol got married because he told her that Mincheol didn't have any interest in girls. Actually, his girl is Sion, a 33-year-old single manager at the company and Mincheol's senior. Now Sang explains to her that even he didn't know that a guy like Mincheol would get married because all he thinks about is the gym, which is why he even forced Sang to go to the gym. Now let's go back and see this 33-year-old single manager's past and why she wanted to marry only Mincheol. So Sion is currently a manager. She is also an ex-engineering goddess, an ex-child genius, and the most beautiful girl in her parents' eyes. Her ideal type is a moderately okay type guy. At age 9, her okay type meant a smart, handsome, tall, considerate, mature guy. At age 16, her definition was just that being okay is good. Must be taller than her and kind of smart. At age 22, it was just someone who she could depend on. At 33, she didn't have anything to say. So in summary, she spent 33 years as a single woman in search of an average guy. And that was when she saw Mincheol in her company. He was her ideal average type. That same night, she talked to Sang about it, who told her at the time that she didn't need to worry about it because Sang and Sion went to the same university and Sang's hobby is sending people together for a free meal. And this made Sion's hopes high and she started dreaming of marrying Mincheol. But now that dream is shattered into pieces. She tries to comfort herself that it's not like he is the only guy in the whole world, but her face doesn't say what her mouth just said. After work, Mincheol heads home while Sang and Sion follow him in secret, as they don't really believe that Mincheol is married. And if he is, they both want to see what type of woman he likes. But when Mincheol stops in front of the apartment, Sion gets curious to see Mincheol's wife. On the other hand, Jia is sitting in front of the door with a cigarette in hand like a gangster, which shocks Sion. Seeing Jia, Mincheol greets her, but she gets angry and asks him why he hasn't called her. If he was going to be late, she wouldn't have had to wait for him for dinner. Mincheol asks her if he is allowed to call her, which shocks her as she didn't mention anything like this in the checklist. Meanwhile, Sion gets frustrated at Sang, asking if Mincheol likes short-tempered women. Back to the duo, Mincheol tells Jia he thought she didn't want to eat with him after what happened during breakfast. And as for the call, she had asked him never to call her back in 5th grade. Jia tells him that was way back, and at that time, they used house phones to call, but she makes an excuse that she doesn't remember restricting him from calling. Suddenly, Jia looks behind Mincheol, but Sang and Sion quickly hide behind the wall. So Jia ignores it and tells Mincheol he can call her whenever he needs to. At the apartment, Jia gets surprised that Mincheol still remembers it and recalls how they used to hang out together. She often came to Mincheol's house to play games, but girls started teasing Jia, saying she was dating a nerd like him, because of which she yelled at him at home not to call her. Later, they both went to the same middle school, and in middle school, Jia was the one who first started ignoring him. Realizing she did all of this to Mincheol, Jia gets embarrassed and now realizes that Mincheol actually never calls her. He just texts her if needed. Jia thinks about texting him first and also saying sorry. On the other hand, Mincheol thinks about something while staring at his mobile phone. At last, he sends a message to Jia. It turns out to be a food order that he placed for Jia. But Jia gets surprised that he still remembers that flaming hot chicken is her favorite food. Suddenly, Jia slams the door and enters Mincheol's room. Mincheol reminds her that she was the one whose first rule was not to enter without knocking. So Jia knocks on the open door and tells him about Clause 5 of their contract. Jia has an issue, and she wants to solve it through communication. The issue Jia has is that Mincheol forgot to order beer with the food, while Mincheol thought he had done something wrong. Jia fills a glass of beer and offers Mincheol to join her, but Mincheol instantly refuses, which shocks her. When she asks him why, Mincheol tells her he doesn't want to lose his gains. But Mincheol brings a bottle of water and decides to at least spend some time with her. He toasts his drink for her. After 2 hours, Jia gets too drunk and teases Mincheol about his past when he used to cry over everything. Soon, she falls asleep and Mincheol comes close to her and wakes her up by ringing an alarm near her ears. Mincheol asks her to go to her room as she may catch a cold if she sleeps there while he cleans the table. Jia calls Mincheol to come close to her and suddenly grabs his glasses. Mincheol chases her and at last slams her against the wall. Seeing Mincheol up close and without glasses, Jia gets embarrassed.